combine small town roots with business savvy, and you've got the Rural Rundown podcast. We're sharing our marketing and branding strategies, tips, and tricks that rural businesses can use to educate, inspire, and entertain their customers, and to help you make sales and hit profit goals. So what does it take to go from your mom is your only fan to famous in a small town? Tune in and listen up as we feature business owners and organizations that are doing big things in their community and creating opportunities for generations to come. Hey, we're here with another episode of the Rural Rundown podcast. It's the middle of May. Rachel, how are things in Minnesota?
Minnesota has finally decided to defrost, and now it's raining all the time. So that's my little weather report at the beginning of every episode. Last week we got hail, really big hail. I've never seen hail that big. I'll have to send you a photo. Like usually, you see hail and it's like, oh, it's a little, you just see it and it's like there for 10 seconds. Like this dropped. And then last week there was really bad storms, like all the way from South Dakota up through. And there was some really bad like wind damage, tornado damage nearby. So that's all like crazy. And I can't believe we've moved into that, but it needs to stop raining for our farmers. So hopefully we can get in the field. That's kind of my life update, farm update. What about you?
All those April showers kind of are coming a little late. On the topic of hail, when I lived in Rapid City, South Dakota, I felt like there was an unusual amount of hail, and it was always big. It was always like huge pellets of hail, like not like little sleeting that I think I grew up with in the Midwest, but it was like pellets, and it was like bombs. I remember one year in August, it always hails in August in South Dakota in Rapid City. I had planted these pepper plants in my apartment in my little barrel. I was so excited, and they got bombed with like hail. There were straight holes right through the leaves. Oh, that sucked.
That's funny. Not funny, but crazy.
On the green thumb update, because I feel like that's my life, I propagated a lot of my cactus last week, and I bought new lavender plants. I scored some huge, big, like heavy-duty pottery pots at an estate sale like 2 weeks ago, so I'm feeling very happy about that. I went out this morning and like watered all my stuff, and in my succulent propagating, I tried a new method of like a tiny greenhouse made from the containers that they give you when you like take carry-out food home with you, and they're like clear containers. I use that as like a little greenhouse for my succulent leaves, and they're working. They're like sprouting. They're crazy. So that's my farm, quote-unquote farm update.
I love it. I've been like begging Jeremy to till the garden for me.
Yeah.
Because I don't trust myself with the tiller. I'm also pregnant, so I'm like, probably shouldn't be operating it. I mean, maybe I should, maybe it'd be fine. I don't know. My mom would kill me, I think, if she heard I was doing something like that. But I'm waiting for him to do that because I grew some little peppers from like seed. But I can tell they like need to get out of that original soil. They are like not thriving anymore. So we'll see if anything comes of them.
That's so exciting. I've been Googling lately how I can do like desert gardening and stuff that goes on. And I've been like kind of watching, if anybody follows like Red Mountain Produce, or they're called like Desert Farm Wives. There's 3 of them there, April Roberts, and then the 2 from Red Mountain Produce. Anyways, I'm like, okay, they can grow stuff in the desert and like make it beautiful. How can I grow stuff in the desert? But it's so hot here. It's been in the hundreds the last few days. So we're like breaking records. It's not usually this hot. It's kind of like a little early for us, but I'm like, I want to start a little backyard garden, but how do things not die?
Yeah. Good luck. I don't know. I have no answers for you.
I know. That's where I'm at too. Anyways, today's topic on the podcast, we just want to do a little check-in with social media and what kind of trends we're seeing in social media. What does the playing field look like for these platforms? I guess we look at 4 or 5 platforms that are kind of like our main guys that everybody is on, and what are the trends we're seeing in that area. So, Rach, kick us off. Where is your favorite platform to be on, and what are you seeing there right now?
Well, I feel like you've all probably heard me talk about this For my clients, my favorite platform still is Facebook. I mean, that's pretty old school, but it's still where we're getting a lot of traction here in the Midwest and for what my clients are looking for. Um, I feel like Facebook is, we've talked about this before, and Instagram and all the platforms try to keep up with each other constantly. But video is still going to be huge on all of them if you think about it that way. I mean, that's still not going away. Short form video, I feel like it's probably a little more popular thanks to the TikTok Reels trends, but that doesn't mean you have to do that on Facebook necessarily. I think there's creative ways that you can do it and repurpose those on Facebook, but there's also just other opportunities via video on Facebook as well. So that's kind of what I'm seeing still there. When I look at, and this is more of a retail based observation I have, live video is still huge for Facebook users. So I know that can be really hard to apply to your own business sometimes, but one of the suggestions I have for my clients is if you can try to go live once a week, and at least you have that pattern and that goal. And it could literally be updates of like, this is what's happening this week at our store or our business, or these are events that are coming up in this month, so that it just kind of becomes a habit. And I think, yes, you're not going to be like a big warehouse retail boutique who's going live 5 times a day for an hour, but you can still utilize that feature on there is what I'm concisely trying to say. So do you have any other things to add to Facebook, Brenna, or what are you seeing?
I'm seeing on Facebook a lot of people utilizing groups, and maybe it's just that as I get into more Facebook groups, but I'm seeing that being a really good place to connect with people without having to be friends with people. So my example is I'm in a couple of community groups for our neighborhood, for Surprise, and then also like niche down even closer to our neighborhood here at just Kingswood Park. And I can connect with like friends and neighbors without having to be personal friends with them and having them see my full profile and me show up on their Facebook wall, but being able to like stay updated and connect with those people in that group. We all have a shared interest and we're all in a shared, location, proximity interest as well. I'm seeing that be really big, and I'm seeing businesses utilize that in different ways too. And, people being able to market their businesses in different ways. If you're in the USA, I think it's called like USA Western Made or something like that. That is a huge business or a huge Facebook group for people to share USA-based products. It kind of started in the pandemic where people wanted to keep stuff, in the US without having to worry about shipping delays, things like that. And then has kind of like, stayed consistent with people being able to share their business there as well. So that's a unique place. Again, a place where you can connect with people who are in the same industry, a place for you to market your business, but not necessarily having to be friends with so many people. I think that's a big thing that I'm seeing in Facebook, and I'm seeing people utilize it better than we have in the past. Groups have been along for a long time. They've been around on Facebook for a long time, but I feel like people are really starting to utilize them now.
I feel like you hit the nail on the head with the nod to the pandemic, because I can even think locally some groups that were started during the pandemic to kind of like help people or keep people involved, and they are still active, and that's where people go to ask community questions. So I mean, on a personal level, that's really nice, but I think there is opportunity if you are a business, like you said, as well. So that's a great observation.
Yeah, even just like yesterday or 2 days ago, I grew up in a really small town. It's 888 people or something like that. And they just recently a business alliance, like Highland Business Alliance, popped up, a Facebook group. And it was funny because people are like, I didn't even know that we had like a business association or a business alliance. And basically they're just sharing, new ownerships of businesses, new businesses, things like that, that as a small town, we can be pretty like nosy/gossipy and knowing like who's who and what's what, but to have something like that that's just focused on businesses, so you can kind of like cheer on those people who are taking over businesses or starting new businesses even in a small town. I think that was really great to see, and even though I live in Arizona now, it's cool for me to be connected to my small Wisconsin town in that way, and technically my business is still registered there because of our full-time travel life and everything we were doing, my business is still registered in Wisconsin, so I still have like a little bit of a stake in what's going on there.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Alrighty, are you ready to move? Do you want to move into Instagram?
Yeah, sure. I love Instagram. That's probably my favorite place to hang out. And something I'm seeing on Instagram lately is, we talk about the pandemic, and that's really when TikTok blew up, which, forced Instagram to kind of compete and create reels. And for a long time we were seeing this push to reels in this whole movement of, quote unquote, Instagram is no longer a photo sharing app and moving into being a video app. So there were a lot of people who it seemed like you had to do the stupid trends and the stupid dancing videos to get any traction on what was going on. And they still say that reels on Instagram are the biggest place to be, but I'm seeing a big push of people, at least in my community of people that I follow there, my network, a big push of people just wanting to get back to sharing regular photos, using Instagram for what it was meant to be, which is a social app. And everybody's kind of done with the facade or the pushiness of business and trying to keep up with these trends or these things that you think you're supposed to do, and just doing them because you think they're fun or you want to do them. So yeah, I see a big push of that, and people trending towards wanting to just share authentic stuff once again. And I think, a lot of this we can relate back to 2020 and what people have kind of gone through in the pandemic and leading up to now, that it's just kind of we really want to get back to living a simple kind of life.
If you saw my eyes moving, and you'll hear Dwayne in the background. Sorry, everybody. I'll talk loud. I just went to my recent Instagram saved, because I wanted to see what was capturing me on a personal level, I guess. And obviously, I save a lot of stuff for business that I oh, that's a great idea. I can reuse that. But one of the things for Instagram that I have noticed, and it's been around for a while, but I feel like people really do utilize it, is when they just do a graphic swipe post where it's educational, 6 things to know, or it has something where you can swipe and you can keep learning. So one, for example, to give a better example, I saved one. This is more of a parent's one that says things to say to your kids in the morning. So it was 5 swipeable that I was oh, that's cute, I should save that. So I think a lot of the trending content that we see, not only through the reels, and like you said, it's relevant to you, it's something that is also savable or educational or helpful. So
Yes.
of course we talk about that all the time, but those are kind of the things that I know that get me on that end, and I think work really well. Because let's face it, the reels and TikToks, which we'll get into TikTok here next, I think, they are really fun and entertaining, but sometimes we also have to have a little more than just that when we're on the business end. We have to still be providing and showing up in different ways. So that would just be the other caveat I'd add there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think, because you brought this up, I will touch on this and give a tip to anybody that's oh, but how do I keep up with all of the trends that are happening? Is right here is a perfect way that you could cross post or use the same content. Is that if you create a carousel post that says, has 5 tips or 5 things that you can say, take that and turn it into a reel as well. And you can use it, you can put your face in front of it, you can dance, you can point to each of those 5 points, or you could just use static graphics, but it's creating a reel. It still shows up as a reel, and the algorithm still likes that. So there's a perfect way that you can utilize the same content in a couple of different ways. And again, people, I think it's important to note this, whenever you're posting on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, whatever, there's so many people that are yelling into the void, right? And so just because you posted a piece of content one time doesn't mean everybody saw it. And actually, it probably means a 10% maybe of your following saw that. Don't be afraid to post that same stuff the next week or 2 weeks later, or even next month. If this is something about your brand or your business that is really important to you, just don't be afraid to go back and kind of recycle some of that content that you have before.
We should have like in the video, you should have like a breaking news, secrets revealed, like because that's so true. Like you can reuse it. I've done that for clients where honestly something's performed really well and I'll post it again a couple months later because it's branding, it's evergreen. If I'm not running like Facebook ad money behind it, but I know it might be a good time to just repost it, same picture or sometimes I'll swap out the picture and use the same copy because it's really good. I think there's some of those pillar content pillars that are so good that it is reusable and it's totally fine. No one's gonna notice. And you know what? Before I've gone on like on influencers pages on Instagram before, and I've scrolled back and I've seen them use the same pictures over and over
Yeah.
again. But that's why they're doing it because they either probably A performed really well and they're reusing it or they're trying it again. So it's all about testing and I mean don't like you said, don't think just because you did it once it's gone and you can never use it again. So
Yep.
good
Yep.
point.
Absolutely. Yeah, so let's, with that, move right into TikTok. TikTok is a place that I have failed to use for business purposes, but I do find myself, I've been better about this. At first, when I got hooked on TikTok, it was like, holy cow, I could scroll for hours and hours and hours. More recently, I find myself only opening the app if I really have some time to kill. I find myself less using it when I'm like, oh, I should be working instead. But more so if I'm like waiting, I'm at an appointment or something, I'm waiting, or speaking of appointments, last week I had to wait to get my emissions tested. I spent 4 hours waiting in line. So like those are the times that I find myself scrolling TikTok, but I find myself using it differently. I find myself using it more like Pinterest lately, where I want to learn something or a hack or a trick, whatever, from somebody. I'll find myself searching that category and then getting lost in the hashtags people are using in those videos.
That's really funny because you say that, and that is actually like the same way that I feel like I'm processing TikTok now too. And I don't let myself get on there very long anymore because I don't want to get through the time
Yeah.
suck. So this sounds really lame, but I'll like to, put my timer to brush my teeth for 2 minutes, and then that's how long I can watch TikToks.
Yeah.
And the ones that I find myself watching are like you said, it's like, oh, I need to make an easy lunch dinner. So then suddenly I'm saving the ones that look good, like Pinterest. So that's
Yeah.
really interesting.
Yeah, I've recently been like wanting to wanting to update our rental kitchen, and also like we're looking at properties. A lot of these properties are, fixer uppers, need repairs, so I'm like diving into like the home DIY demos, or like I really, I'm passionate about updating our backyard space, so I'm looking through there of like DIYs in the backyard, and I'm always searching like different things. And then if I find, a creator that I really like, I'll look at their hashtags and I'll look at their account and see if they post more of that like content. So I think the biggest trend on TikTok is, again, utilizing those hashtags and then finding a niche. Which a lot of people say like it was hard for them to do on TikTok, was to like stick with a niche. And I think that's why I've like failed to use it for a business as well, is because like I'm like, god, I just want one place that I'm not there for business purposes. Like I can see the value in TikTok, I can see what people are creating, but for me as a brand designer, it's a lot of just like showing your face and like doing those, repurposing that content, like, on carousels. I would rather be building graphics or working on client work than spending time creating TikToks or creating reels. So I use it just as like a personal divulgence, like just something that I can kind of like spend my time in and use it as a social media app versus using it for business. So I think I can talk about the trends of TikTok. How to like use TikTok successfully, probably not your girl.
I feel the same way. I feel like there's there's value in TikTok. What I've said over and over again is there's really that entertainment factor, the save factor. So if you're
Yes.
going to have content like that, sure, let's get it on there. Let's utilize it, but I don't think it can be our core value
Mhm.
strategy. It can be an additional thing. So, when you entertain, educate, what is the other one? I'm missing it.
Inspire.
Inspire. Like when you're thinking about your categories of the content you're going to make, like, yeah, maybe that fits in there once in a while, but it's not like it has to be all in and all out for a business that probably needs to hit different goals and objectives throughout the month. So
Yeah.
that's my, I hope
Yeah.
I don't sound like a broken record, but
I think the other thing I want to touch on here is like when we look at these different platforms, I was just talking to Rach about this before we were recording, how each of these platforms kind of hit a different community and they hit kind of like a different level of person. So TikTok did such a good job in 2020 of just creating a community and creating a space where it was just fun. People could use it for fun. It was new, it was exciting. You could learn all these hacks. I still get on TikTok, you know, every time I'm on there, I learn something new or I see something that somebody's doing differently. Like it's kind of crazy how much you can like see into somebody's life or even just little things that have transformed their life that you can add into yours. So I think TikTok is like a perfect place for that. Again, on Facebook, I think it's a great place to connect with community and maybe kind of like get recent updates or news or be in these groups of like interest that again like just kind of like learning or educational, I guess is what I would call that. Even with the news is, you know, educational type of content. And then we look at Instagram, which you and I both use for businesses. Oli makes fun of me all the time because I have multiple Instagram accounts, but I'm like, well, I've been in these different businesses. I run Instagram accounts for different businesses. I'm like in the backside of them. And then also like recently moving towards having like a personal Instagram versus like a business as I build a team. So I like Instagram has this playing field of like you can connect with people in the DMs really well. You can still create this community around like-minded stuff, but it's obviously used very different. It's more of like an image or graphics first versus Facebook is more of like a text or like, you know, headline first kind of deal. So I think you take all of that into account when you're looking at the trends of different social media platforms as well. But I guess like the last one to talk about is Twitter. I think we always kind of like breeze over this when we talk about social platforms. I don't use Twitter. Twitter is like a weird thing for me where it's like I know stuff's happening over there. When I was in news, I used Twitter a lot, and now that I'm not, I just don't care as much.
yeah. I remember having it in college, and then I do have a client that I kind of repurpose content up there for them because they do have a Twitter account, but I don't do anything real strategic beyond that. So I can't really speak to Twitter, but I know it's another community for people who love that platform. So I think it kind of, if it does it align with your business, your personality, the way you write, because that's kind of,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's obviously you can do all the things on there now too, I believe. But it's still kind of like, is it witty? Is it funny? Is it short enough to be digested and go from there? So if that's your
Yeah.
brand, good for you. Be
Yeah,
there.
I think if you have a strong brand voice, then Twitter is definitely a place to be. You know, we have these outliers too of LinkedIn and Pinterest. Like all of these are platforms that you can use. We can call them social media platforms. But really when we look at like our three big ones, we're looking at Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. And even though Instagram and Facebook are owned by the same company, they're very different. And that's where, you know, when we brought up Twitter too, we're like, well, the trend on Twitter right now is like you said, short, witty, something that's like easily digestible. I think it's a great place to share links and resources as well. So that's why I use it so much in news, is that you can see a lot of stuff happening there. You know, and you look at, you know, Elon Musk's on and off again, will I, won't I buy Twitter, and what does Twitter stock look like, and then you again, a strong brand voice. You look at these other things where Twitter can be really comical when you're looking at things like Wendy's, Burger King, and how they kind of like interact with each other and what goes on there. So, you know, that's what I find myself, if I am searching for breaking news or something that has recently come up, I still tend to lean towards Twitter and I'll hop on there. But as far as like myself tweeting, I don't know the last time that I have tweeted something. I really couldn't tell you. Um, so yeah, I guess those are the trends that we are seeing in social media right now. I guess I would love to hear from our listeners, what is your favorite platform to be on, and what are the trends that you're seeing that you really like at the moment? And whether that is a dance or a video trend or an actual trend of the platform itself, we would love to hear from you.
Yes, and I would have a follow-up question. If you see those trends, have you tried them? If you're a business owner, have you tried them for your business? It'd just be interesting to kind of find out where you prefer to be hanging out and what you're doing over there too. So, yeah.
Yeah, we look forward to hearing from you, and thanks for listening to this episode.
Well, that's it for this episode of the Rural Rundown podcast.
Thanks for listening. You can always find us on social media at The Rural Rundown.
And if you really liked this episode, we would totally love it if you gave us a review and gave us a little rating.
It would mean so much to us. And for more small town roots and business savvy, catch us on the next one.